Okay, so I'm going to see if this works a little bit better than yesterday. I know we were having some trouble trying to show each other our notebooks and everything. So, all right, hold on one second. Okay, so just to review, this is your number line. You always are going to start with just your line, and then you're going to add your arrows at either end to show that even past your number line, numbers will continue. Always start with 0 in the middle, and then you can add however many ticks to the left and ticks to the right that you need. They really should be more even than this, but it's a little bit hard to do this on here. Now, everything to the left of 0 is going to be your negative numbers, and everything to the right of 0 is going to be your positive numbers. As you go to the right of 0, your numbers get bigger. As you go to, as you go to the left of 0, your numbers get smaller. Now, some people get a little bit confused because when you're writing numbers, you have 1 and then 2, and normally you would think that the number is getting bigger. But because these are your negatives, the bigger negative number that you have, that's the smaller number. So -2 is smaller than -1, even though on this side of the number line, 2 is bigger than 1, 3 is bigger than 2, 4 is bigger than 3. On this side of the number line, 2 is smaller than 1 because you have your negative sign right here. So I'm just going to add the rest of my negative numbers here. I'm just going to ignore this one. So when you have the word graph, that word basically means show where the number is. So if I were to say graph 1, hold on, let me change the color here. Graph 1, I would start at 0, and then I would go to 1, and I draw a little circle right there. That's graphing 1. If I want to graph -2, I start at 0, and I find -2, and I go to my number line, and I graph -2, meaning I show where -2 is. Now, your number line can be either horizontal, which is left to right, or vertical, which is up and down. For a vertical number line, just add my tick marks here. Again, always start at 0. 0 is the only number that does not have a positive or a negative. It doesn't matter whether you write your numbers to the left of the line or to the right of the line. Really doesn't matter. I do mine on the left just because I'm lefty. I'll try to make a better effort to do mine on the, I'll try to do mine on the right. Hold on. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3. Now for your vertical, everything above 0 is going to be your positives. Everything below 0 is going to be your negatives. So again, if you're going to graph 2, start at 0, go to 2. Graph -3, start at 0, find -3, you go to your graph, and you draw your circle. So that's just a little bit of a review from yesterday. So the second half of the lesson that I didn't want to do yesterday just because I felt like this was going to be enough, it's called the midpoint. Let's see. So your midpoint. Finding the middle between 2 points on a graph. Now there's 2 steps for finding the midpoint. Actually, no, sorry. To find a midpoint, you find the average of the 2 points. Now, I'm not sure if you remember how to find the average, so I'm just going to type this out here. That way you can write it down for your own notebook. Use them as ice packs.
Those are the frozen ones?
Add your numbers together. Divide that number by the amount of numbers we're finding the average for. Now, I know that's a little bit confusing. So we're going to do an example. So if I wanted to find the average of 7 and 3, here's what I would do. Step 1 is you add the numbers together. So 7 plus 3 equals 10. And the second step is divide that number, 10, by the amount of numbers you're finding the average for, 7 and 3. So I'm taking 10 divided by 2, because I used 2 numbers to get to 10. I used 7 and 3. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. That's my average. We'll do another one. Let me just erase this. If I wanted to find the average of 5, 1, and 3, first I would add them all together. So 5 plus 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. So actually, sorry, I'll keep that all pink, equals 9. So my second step is to divide that number, 9, by the amount of numbers that I'm finding the average for. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we divide by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 3 is my average. I'm actually going to make, hold on, I'm trying to find out, yeah, okay. Erase. Now this might be something that you need help with, so we can go over that when we're going over all your questions. So midpoint is another word for average, because let's see. What we're trying to do is we're graphing the midpoint. So again, remember, graph equals show the number on the number line. Midpoint equals the average shown on the number line. So
That's not gonna help.
I could do that. So our first example is finding the midpoint of 0 and 4. Find the midpoint of 0 and 4. Remember, step 1, add the numbers together. 0 plus 4 equals 4. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Because first we had to add the numbers together. So 0 plus 4 equals 4. Step number 2, finding the midpoint or average, dividing that number 4 by the amount of numbers you are finding the average for. 2, because there's one number, 2 numbers. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. So our midpoint is 2. So the next step is to graph our midpoint. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. So we're graphing the midpoint. Okay? Let's do another one. Dad just texted me. It's a little distracting. Find the midpoint of 12 and 22. Okay. So the first step, add the numbers together. So we add 12 plus 22. So we got 4, 2 plus 2 is 4, 1 plus 2 is 3. So we have 34. Second step, divide that number, 34, by the amount of numbers you're finding the average for, 1, 2. So 34 divided by 2, I think it's 17. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 17. So our midpoint is 17. So again, to graph, let's see the best way to do this. Sorry. 12, 15, 18, 17 is probably right here. Because remember, you don't have to always go by ones. So here's 15, here's 18, 16, 17. 17 is probably right here. So that's how we would graph it. All right, so that's how you find your midpoint. I'm going to make a little kind of like cheat sheet of this information. That way you can use that when you're trying your exercises. So that's all we're going to do for today. Just trying to figure out how to save this.